Hello Year 9 and welcome to your second lesson of the week and the fourth lesson of your development topic. And today we are focusing on the causes of uneven development. So by the end of the lesson we should be able to explain the different causes of uneven development across the world. Just quickly talking about our learning journey. The first thing we need to do is look at how development has changed over time, because it is not a static concept. It has changed since the Industrial Revolution, since before that, and it is still changing today. We're then going to focus on a key geographical skill of being able to describe the global patterns of development. And then finally, we're going to explain what can cause uneven development. Before we get started, I do just want to talk about what I mean by uneven development. It's just talking about the differences in the level of progress countries will make. So, for example, you've got the USA, which is a very, very wealthy country, has great levels of development in comparison to a country like Nepal, where it has worse healthcare, worse education, worse infrastructure. That would be uneven development. But you cannot assume that all of the USA has the same development. So, for example, New York would have a much higher development rate than, let's say, somewhere like Detroit. So there are regional differences in development as well as international differences in development. Look at Birmingham. You have somewhere like Sutton Coldfield, which is very, very developed, compared to somewhere like Neutrals, which may not have as much of a quality of life. So those differences can really vary. We today are focusing on global differences in development. That is our focus. I want you to meet my friend Hans Roslin, okay? And Hans Roslin was a fantastic man. He studied lots of global and health developments, lots of wealth developments, and he created a really good website called Gap Finder. If you can have a little look at that, it gives you just a little bit of information to play with and some data if you're really, really interested in it. He came up with a really, really good video and a really good visual perception of how development has changed over time by using two axes: health versus wealth. So I think he uses life expectancy versus GDP. I want you to open the YouTube video that is linked to Clash Charts, and I also want you to open the Word document called Hans Roslin Video Questions. On a piece of paper, I want you to answer the question. You do not have to write the full question out. Write the number of the question and answer it in a full sentence. The questions that are labelled as developing, the answers are directly in the video. If it is a secure question, it does need you to make links to prior learning from this topic, and mastered, it would be a question that can't be answered from using the video, but it also makes you think about applying your knowledge to a different scenario. The information won't jump out at you. Have a go at those questions now for me. The next task then is we are going to visit a key geographical skill that will come up over and over and over again, especially if you study this next year at GCSE. We're going to look at a Choropleth map, and the reason it's called a Choropleth map is because it is designed to show you data by using coloured categories. So this map shows us the HDI of the countries across the world, and we would use this key here to make decisions about the data being presented. We can see the darkest blue countries have a very high human development. So thinking all the way back to lesson 1, the Human Development Index measures life expectancy, literacy rate and GNI. So we know that if a country has a high HDI value of closer to 1 than 0, they would be a very developed country. As you move down to green, which would show us a very low human development. So we can see on this map that there are massive changes in development across the world. When we answer these questions, we use the structure of GCSE. So if we imagine that we are answering the question, describe the distribution of very high human development countries, we would do the following. The first thing you do is you split your map in half and add on the equator. And your first sentence would be whether or not the map has better development. So generally, and then you would include which part of information you would use. Closer in then, it's always really good practice to label your continents on a map. Which continents have the higher levels of development? You don't have to write 1, you don't have to write 2. If you have said that the general trend is the north, you can't then say that Oceania has a high level of development. You have to make sure your continent is in the hemisphere that you have identified. Specifically, you would name a specific country that belongs to the continent that you have identified. If you have said that North America has a high human development, don't then say the UK is a specific country. You would need to talk about the USA, or you would need to talk about Canada. And then the exception is the tricky part. What does not follow the original trend you said? So, for example, if you said that the north has a better development, you would then have to talk about something in the south that does not fit the general trend. You would only get your 4th mark if you explained why that was the exception. So, for example, Oceania is the exception because it is in the south, but it has a very high human development. And that is as easy as it is to get 4 marks on a real life GCSE question. So you can probably guess, what your next task is going to be. I want you to do one of the following tasks. You can either write out the gap fill and fill in the gaps using the map to help you. Okay, if you are doing that task, I want you to underline the words that have been filled in. If you are doing secure, I just want you to use the acronym and the prompts to answer the GCSE question. If you are doing mastered, I want you to do the same as secure, but I also want you to suggest why this pattern might exist. Why is it that those countries, those continents that you have identified are more developed than those that you have not? Have a go at that now, and remember it is worth 4 marks. The final part of your lesson then is to talk about what makes these differences happen. Why is it that the continent of Africa is generally more underdeveloped than the continents of Europe and the continents of North America? And there are 8 key reasons why countries cannot develop. And as geographers, we love to categorise things. And in this case, we do it into 3 categories. It is not the usual social, economic and environmental that you are used to. The first one is historical. So anything that has happened in a country's past that might stop it from getting richer. The second one is economic. So anything to do with their economy, their income, their industry that would stop them from getting richer. And then the final one is anything to do with the country's natural environment that would stop it from making any money. What your task is, I want you to open the YouTube video that is linked to task 3 on class charts, where I have made another video that explains 8 factors of uneven development to you. Create a table, like the one that's just popped up, and do the following whilst watching the video. For developing, you would just sort the factors into the correct column. So, for example, you might write climate-related disease in physical. Secure, I want you to pick 3 and explain how it will stop a country from getting richer. For mastered, I want you to think about which one would get the worse in the future and be able to explain why. There is also a word wall game attached to this task for you to check your understanding of the concepts that I have just spoken about. And that brings us to the end of your second lesson of the week. And in terms of what you must upload, I would love you to upload your GCSE exam answer to the map, because that would show us that you have understood how the global patterns of development have changed and how they are different. And then I want you to upload your table of factors which cause uneven development, because that shows me that you have been able to explain what has caused uneven development. Thank you so much for participating and listening so closely, and we really look forward to marking all of your work. Thank you.